Hi children. So this is our second video for the grade 7 video series. So hope you can have already watched my previous video for chapter 1 for grade 7. Welcome you all. So this is the second video. Please be with us. This is about operating system. So if you remember in the grade 6 also you have learned this similar context in chapter 3. So please go and refer my video for that. So it will quickly recap. It's about 30 minutes video. So it will quickly recap what you learned in grade 6. So this is the grade 7. So small new things have been added here. So it's better you have a basic understanding of grade 6 before moving to this. So you can see the URL above. So please go there and first watch it and then come to the chapter 2 of grade 7. So operating system, you may remember we learned about operating system. It's a software, right? It's a system software, and without an operating system, you cannot proceed with the computer. So operating system is something which is must to have when you are working in the computer, right? So operating system is doing a lot of tasks, right? Basically in grade 6 we learn very few things like file management, but here they have given you some more items what operating system is doing, right? So one main thing it is doing is it's acting as a mediator or the middleman between the user and the computer, right? So operating system is the one which is giving the user interface, right? User interface means where you can go and click some icon, where you can drag something. So where you interact with your keyboard and mouse, right? So you have a user interface when you log into your machine. You can see some screen on your computer. So that's the user interface. So this is a graphical user interface. Most of the operating systems nowadays, we have a graphical user interface where you have icons, windows like that. Uh, so this is provided by the operating system. So that's one of the main things provided as a facility by the operating. Second thing is it is controlling all the functions of the CPU. Remember central processing unit we learned in the previous chapter. So that means CPU is mainly controlled by the operating system. And next thing is the memory management, right? So memory management, not only internal devices, but external devices as well. So control all the activities related to the storage devices. So in this chapter, we are going to learn about more things about storage devices. Next thing is file management. So files and folders, how to rename, copy, delete, how to create a new one. So all these things are managed by the operating system. Next thing is basically about security related things. We learn this about these things in grade 6 as well. Usernames, how to select a good password. So those things. So security management is basically also handled by operating system, and not only that, network related issues also managed by the operating system. So last they have mentioned about hardware management. All these hardware, what do you mean by hardware? All the tangible devices, that means where you can touch. These devices are called hardware, like keyboard, mouse, mic, speakers, monitor, right? All these items are considered as hardware, right? So this hardware is mainly managed by the operating system. So you can see operating system is like the main uh, person who do lot of tasks: memory management, security management, hardware management, network management, file management, right? So many things in his bucket, right? So here they are talking about different kind of operating systems. Not sure whether you have really heard about Microsoft DOS, but I have worked in MS-DOS. So it is actually like a main, like uh, ancient kind of operating system. And remember, it's basically command line based interface was there, not a graphical user interface. It's a command line based. You can see how this command line is look like. So today also, you can just you can see a command line like this. So in today's machines also you can go to the command line like type CMD, and the first one you can see CMD. It's a command prompt app. Okay, so this, as the now you can see in the screen, this in here you have to type all the commands, right? So for example, if you want to move from we'll think you are in C some test folder, right? If you want to move to another folder called my school in the same C drive, you have to type CD and my school like that. So all the commands you have to type, not very easy like clicking and dragging and double clicking and those things. Here you have to type all your commands. So Microsoft DOS was kind of initial type of operating systems. Nowadays we don't use it because the graphical user interfaces are more user friendly. So then we had Microsoft Windows, right? Today also most of the people are using it. And for Apple machines, we have Macintosh or Mac OSs, right? So it's for Apple machines. And Linux base, Linux is a open source soft operating system. We have learned what do you mean by proprietary and open source in grade 6. So open source means it's freely given, right? You can easily go to internet and download and use it. Any softwares, there are so many softwares which is open source. But when it comes to proprietary things like Windows OS, Mac OS, this Microsoft package, or MS Word, MS Excel, MS Access, those things, those are proprietary softwares. That means actually you have to pay the license and use it, right? But in Sri Lanka, sometimes most of the people are using fake products. They don't pay for the license, but that's not legal, right? You have to pay the license and use if it's a proprietary software. So these are basically for the desktop, for the laptops, it's for the computers, but for the mobile devices, you have some kind of separate operating systems like Android. So it's for you may have heard about Android operating system. And for Apple mobile phones, we have iPhones, iPad, iPod, those things they are using iOS. And then for BlackBerry mobile devices, we have BlackBerry OS, and Windows Mobile is basically for phones like Lumia, HTC, right? So for mobile phones, there is separate set of operating systems. For the computers, there are separate set of operating systems. So now you may understand how this mobile phone is acting very similar to the computer. They also have an operating system, but I'm talking about very old phones. I'm talking about smartphones, right? These smartphones, you can go to internet, you can listen to music, you can type, you can do most of the things which can be done using the computer. So that's because there's an operating system behind it, which is handling everything. Then they are going to talk about storage device. You may have think why in this chapter we are learning about storage devices. Why? Because in the you may remember when we start the chapter, they told operating system is managing storage devices. It's managing the memory management. Storage devices are managed by the operating system. So that's why in this chapter they are going to talk about storage devices. Any idea why storage devices are very important? Now, data and information can be in different formats. It can be a document, it can be photo, video, animation, or sound, anything. So these data and information can be stored in storage devices, and you can later use it, right? Even instructions for the computer can be stored in the storage devices. Now, even the operating system itself, it's stored in a storage device. So that is the importance of the storage devices, right? So these devices which can store data, information, and instructions or the programs that belong to the computer are known as computer storage devices, right? You may have remember in grade 6 we learn input devices, output devices, like that. We learn about storage devices. So here it's kind of a recap with more advanced knowledge in it. So these computer storage devices can be divided into three categories based on the main technology they are going to use. For example, magnetic media devices, optical media devices, solid state media devices. I will talk about them each, right? Don't worry, these terms. So you basically remember storage devices, you can divide it into three categories based on the technology they are using, right? So first one is magnetic media devices, right? So examples are magnetic tapes, floppy disks, and hard disks. Most probably you may have not heard about the first two, but hard disk for you, sure, yeah, you may have heard. So these are called as magnetic media devices, right? So basically why we tell like that, because they have a magnetic surface or a magnetic tape in them. That's why we call it as a magnetic media devices, right? So hard disk, it is having a magnetized platter and a moving metal head. So the when you, uh, if you can see the real hard disk, you can see the picture of it here. So the hard disk has a moving metal head and a magnetized platter, right? So there are basically two types of hard disks. Some are internal hard disks, so all your computers have them currently, as well as you have external portable hard disks also. So a large amount of storage or data can be stored in there permanently in the internal hard disks, and it's a magnetic media device, and it is in the system unit. Remember, like CPU? Okay. So CPU is in the system unit. Similarly, hard disk also in the system unit. RAM is in the system unit. Okay. So have some basic understanding what these items are. And external devices are portable stuff. So you may have heard we now have even 2 terabytes uh, hard disks, external hard disks. Okay, so you can store a lot of data, a lot of amount of data, because the capacity of them is very high. So then we'll come to these magnetic tapes, right? You may have seen, do you remember in the earlier days, cassettes we have something with the tape? It's something similar like that. So this magnetic tape is a thin plastic tape covered with a magnetic substance, right? So this is used to record sounds, images, and all. But nowadays we don't use them. Why? The capacity is low. There are a lot of bottlenecks in it. So nowadays we don't actually use magnetic tapes. It's obsolete. Next thing is the floppy disks. Now, when I was in grade 8, 6, 7, 8, at that age, or our system unit basically had floppy disk drive. I can remember when I learn computer, they have given me a floppy disk. So that is the most valuable one of the items I had, kind of. So this floppy disk, I put my name there and with a sellotape, and there's a floppy disk driver in the system unit, so you can insert the floppy disk. It's for storing things, but it is very the capacity of the floppy disk is very low. It's about 1.44 MB, megabytes, right? You know, I hope you know the relationship remember? So megabytes, gigabytes, you now you understand the difference, right? So it's about only now we have terabytes, right? So megabyte is 1.44 megabyte is very small, right? Now if you think about the Avatar film, it's I'm not 100%, but roughly it's about 2 GB, right? The film itself is 2 GB. Right, so you can imagine 1.44 MB is very small storage capacity. So nowadays we don't use this. Even in the system unit nowadays we don't have floppy disk drive. Okay, floppy disk drive. So at present, these things are not used, and similar to floppy disk, there are some things called zip disks, jazz disks, but we don't actually use them. These are obsolete, right? So most important thing is the hard disk as the magnetic media devices. Then comes the optical media devices, right? These are the devices where the data is read and written using the laser beams, right? So you may have heard this CD, but please remember the name compact discs. Sometimes they may have asked you to write the what do you mean by CD actually, right? So it's compact disc, and there are two types. One thing is CDR, that means recordable, and the next thing is CDRW, that means rewritable. That means you can write once again. On top of that, you can write another data. That is the meaning of this writable thing, right? Otherwise, if it's CDR, you can only record one time. That's it. But if it's CDRW, that means it's a rewritable thing. And the capacity is about bit small, but still we use CDs because for like one time saving and all, like for some people use most of time still for songs and all. So 650 MB or 700 MB. So capacity is like that. Next thing is DVD. You may have heard about DVD, but not this, the big term digital versatile discs. So these terms, it's very important you remember, okay? So there are also two types, DVD-R, that means recordable, and its data can be written only once. And the next thing is RWC, rewritable DVDs, right? So roughly the capacity is about 1.7 GB, 8.5 GB, 15, 30 GB like that. So you can save some films there, okay? And the next thing is Blu-ray discs, right? So the capacity is very high, storage capacity is very high. It's about 25 GB like, okay? Okay, then comes the solid state media devices. Solid, why we call it? Now in the uh, hard disks and compact disks and all these places, we use moving parts. Remember in the hard disk there was a moving head, right? So we used in those two items, we use moving parts to read and write data. Even for CD drive has a moving head. So that's how they are reading. But in solid state media devices, we don't have moving parts in it. So that's why we call it as with this name, right? So in here, we basically read and write data electronically at a high speed. So speed is very high. For example, this SSD drive, pen drive, right? Memory cards. You may have used these things. So these things are a bit faster in their reading and writing, and they don't have any moving heads, moving parts. So that's why we call it solid state media device. Otherwise, you will think why we have this kind of a name for pen drives and memory cards. So that's the meaning. Okay. Okay. Then we are going to learn about file management. Most of the things here uh, we have already discussed in grade 6. So you can refer that video. Here it's a file. right? About file and folder. So file is something like a letter. It can be a Word document, it can be a song, it can be an image. So normally a file has two things. We learn this. First part is file name. It's used to identify the file. And the second part is the file extension, right? With a dot, you tell the extension, and file extension is basically used to indicate what is the application software we are going to use for this file, right? So, for example, in this given example, sportmeet.docs. So, sportmeet is the file name. Docs is the file extension. So, docs is for basically word processing software, Microsoft Word, the latest versions. So, that is how you can uh, think about the file name. So let me show you. So here now I'm in a school folder, right? So these are some files. So if you cannot see the extensions in latest Windows operating systems, you can easily do it with file name extension. Can you see here? In under view, you have this. So tick it. So you can see the file extensions. Can you see this is XLSX. So what's the type? It's a Microsoft Excel. Text document. Docs, Microsoft Word document. JPG. So that is a image file. Right? So this is a file name. This is a file extension. Can you see? Okay. So this is a file name and extensions. Okay. Then we are going to learn about folder, right? So normally rather than keeping lot of files here and there, better to arrange them inside a folder, right? So folder can store a lot of files, right? So it's easy to manage your work, right? So let's see how to create. I will quickly go through the textbook and then we'll show the real practical thing how to do. So here it's talking about creating a folder, right? And then here it's talking about saving files to the folder, right? Okay, we'll do it and see, then it's more practical, I guess. So first thing is about creating a folder, right? So here I am going to right click and you can see new, and here you can see folder. So we'll give as sport meet, right? So all these files I can move to this one. Okay. So drag and drop. So similar way in, can you see in this, if you click the home menu, you can see there's something called new folder. And when you go there, you can see Control Shift N. If you press those three keys together, also you can create this. So there are mainly three methods. One thing is going home and clicking new folder, right? We'll think as chess, something like that. Or you can right click and go to new and fold, and you can create a new folder. Or there's another way, as mentioned here, Control Shift N. Control Shift N. Again, you can get a folder. Okay, so there are basically three methods to create a new folder, right? Then what they're talking about, saving files in a folder, right? So for example, if I click Word document and test, right? So I'm going to save it. So for the first time when I'm going to save, you have to click File, Save As. Even you save file, save, it will go to this particular view within this folder, right? Test. After that, when you do say changes, you can just do file save. Okay, so that is how you are going to save files for the first time. And if you want to go and open a file, you just go to that particular folder and just double click it. Okay, or you can go to that particular folder, right click, and you can open. Same thing. Okay, I think double click is easier. You can go to the particular folder, select it, and double click. Okay, and then you can copy or move things from one place to another, right? For example, even files you can move like that. So you take this file, you right click, you copy, and then you go to this new folder, right click again, and you paste. So this budget Excel will be in the sports folder as well as in the sports meet folder because we copy. But now we're going to move it. Now go to that sport meets docs, right click, and you cut. Then you go to a new folder and you right click and you paste. Now if you go back to the sports meet thing, is it there? No, it has been moved. Okay, it has been moved. Okay, so that's the difference between copy and cut, right? One thing is you just copy, other thing is you are moving from one location to another. Okay, then how to change the name, not even of a file, but even folder. Now we'll think, right click, rename, sport meet details. That's how you rename a file. You can rename a folder. I don't want this as chess. I want it as badminton. I can rename the folder very easily. Okay, so you have to right click and select the rename command, and then you type the required name. You can easily delete any folder you want. Okay, so you go there. Okay, you select it and you can either right click and delete. Okay, or you can just select it and press the delete button in your keyboard. Now it's deleted. But remember, the items deleted from the um, internal location, like the hard disk. Now my folder was in the hard disk, so it is actually deleted temporary. That means you can easily recover that one. So you go to the recycle bin. Here you can see it. You can recover it, restore. If you restore it, it will come back to here. See? Okay, so badminton is there. Okay, you can restore. But remember, if you delete some folder or file from an external storage like pen drive, it's permanently deleted and you cannot get it back, right? And now think you want to delete something permanently. I don't want it. So for that, you have to press Shift and Delete keys together. Now we'll see. You go there, press Shift and Delete together. Then they're asking, do you want to permanently delete? Yes. If you press yes, please remember it is not in the recycle bin. Here. So it's permanently deleted. Understood? Okay. So then we are going to identify the characteristics of files and folders, right? So if you go to a file or a folder and if you right click, you can see all these kind of data in it, right? So let me show you that as well. So you go and right click and see the properties, right? You can see the details. So this is a folder, where it is stored, what's the size of it, right? And when it was created, right? Things like that. Okay, so if I go to this one, if I right click this and see the properties, now see it has more data created on this, modified on this, and accessed on this. See, so there are more information on it. Okay, and you see the extension, the type of the file is docs. Okay. Okay, so let me see what we have. Yeah, so that's the end of the chapter, right? So in this chapter, we basically learned about the operating system. It's the main software in the computer, and it's acting as a mediator between the man and the computer, right? And it controls a lot of things: memory management, file management, security management, network management. And there are so many operating systems like Windows, Apple, or Mac OS, Linux-based operating systems, and there are mobile versions of operating systems, right? So that's the second part. Third part is we learn about storage devices. There are basically three categories according to the technology they are using. And we learned about examples and what are their capacities and all. So finally, we learned about file and folder management, right? How to create a new file, how to create a new folder, how to save, how to copy, right? How to open some folder just to double click, right? How to copy and move, right? Copy and cut, the difference. Control, if you press for copying, it's Control C. For pasting, it's Control V. For cut, Control X. So these keyboard shortcuts are also very important. So yeah, that's the end of the chapter 2. So thank you very much for joining with our channel. So please subscribe my channel if you have all not subscribed, because then you can get easy notifications. Press the bell icon as well. So put your questions and comments, and also it's very important for me. So yeah, we'll meet with the third chapter as well. Thank you very much.